Welcome to This Explainer. I am absolutely thrilled to have you here today. But okay, I gotta give you a quick, playful warning right off the bat. Just hearing the word yawn, or honestly, even just thinking about the fascinating science we're gonna look at today, might literally trigger a contagious yawn right now. If you feel that urge bubbling up, seriously don't fight it. Just let it happen. Because as we're gonna see in the data today, it might actually be exactly what your brain needs.
So let's start with the big question. Why do we actually yawn? I mean, it feels like the most ordinary human act in the world, right? It's a universal reflex we all experience, usually triggered by, being super tired or bored or just seeing someone else's mouth stretch wide open. But amazingly, despite it being something every single one of us does all the time, yawning remains a genuine, everyday medical mystery. Scientists haven't completely figured out the main physiological reason for why it happens.
And we know it's deeply, deeply ingrained in our biology. There's this fantastic quote from UNSW postdoc Adam Martinack. He says, "It's unlikely that crocodiles and dinosaurs are yawning because of a social response, such as being bored by other crocodiles or dinosaurs." It's a pretty hilarious mental image, right? But the underlying science is actually super profound. Yawning is this primordial process preserved throughout evolution. I mean, crocodiles do it. Even human fetuses do it in very early development stages in the womb. Because of this, researchers know for sure there has to be something way more fundamental going on than just signaling that we're tired.
Okay, so Section 1, Scanning the Brain, the UNSW and Neura MRI study. Let's dive right into this. To finally crack this evolutionary case, a team of researchers led by Professor Lynn Bilston at UNSW Sydney and Neuroscience Research Australia ran an MRI study, literally looking inside our heads using real-time scans. Their methodology was incredibly clever. They ran a small-scale study with 22 participants, and they focused the MRI scans right at the level of the C3 vertebra. Now, if you're wondering where that is, the C3 vertebra is basically a major crossroads in your upper neck, where all of the blood and fluids pass as they travel to and from the brain. To get authentic data, they couldn't just tell the volunteers, hey, fake a yawn. It wouldn't work. Instead, they triggered real, contagious yawns by showing them videos of humans and even animals yawning. They needed to observe the genuine, involuntary reflex in real time to see what was truly happening inside the neck and the skull.
Which brings us to the first major discovery of the study, the brain's plumbing system, cerebrospinal fluid dynamics.
Before we look at the actual results, let's define a really crucial term. Cerebrospinal fluid, or CSF for short, is a clear liquid that completely surrounds and protects your brain and spinal cord. Kind of think of it like water cushioning a floating object. It is absolutely essential because it acts as a shock absorber against injury, but it also has this massive circulation role. It helps carry essential nutrients into the brain and, critically for what we're talking about today, it carries waste products out.
Now, what is really interesting here is the dramatic contrast the NRI revealed between a fake yawn and a real one. Just look at how this compares. When volunteers took a deep breath, pretending to yawn, the venous blood, which has already delivered its oxygen, drained out of the skull towards the heart, while the CSF flowed into the skull. That's just standard normal breathing dynamics. But look at what happens during a genuine, contagious yawn. Something entirely different occurred. The venous blood and the cerebrospinal fluid suddenly flowed out of the skull together. This synchronized outflow maneuver, that was a massive surprise to the whole research team. So what does this all mean? Let's move to clearing out brain waste, the neurological night shift. Why does that synchronized outflow of fluid actually matter to you and me? Well, the researchers speculate that this sudden outflow suggests yawning acts as a physical pump. It's an active body movement that forces fluid flow to clear out the brain. You can literally think of it as taking out the brain's trash before bedtime. Throughout the day, your brain builds up all this metabolic waste. So the fact that we naturally yawn so heavily right before we go to sleep, that strongly suggests this bodily reflex is pitching in to flush out that dirty fluid, basically preparing a nice, clean neurological environment for you to rest in.
And here's where it gets really important for our long-term health. Think about conditions like Alzheimer's disease, Parkinson's disease, and dementia. All of these super serious neurodegenerative diseases have been potentially linked to the buildup of waste products in and around the brain. And that buildup can be the direct result of impaired CSF flow as we age. Basically, the older we get, the more waste accumulates. If researchers can definitively prove that a simple yawn is an evolutionary mechanism designed to clear out that exact fluid, man, that opens up entirely new, fascinating avenues for understanding and potentially monitoring our brain health as we grow older.
All right, let's switch gears a bit. The brain's cooling system, thermoregulation. This brings us to the second, equally fascinating theory proposed by the UNSW study, that yawning might actually act as your brain's internal radiator. Let's anchor this whole concept with a key number, 1 degree Celsius. Human brain tissue runs hot. It can actually be up to 1 degree Celsius warmer than the rest of our body. And a hot brain is actually a very bad thing. Our brains operate safely within a super narrow temperature band to stay steady and balanced, a state we call homeostasis. If the brain gets too hot, there's a serious risk of cell damage, cerebral swelling, and even seizures. That's exactly why the body has so many built-in mechanisms like sweating to keep the brain perfectly chilled.
Now, add this specific detail into the mix. The venous blood that's leaving the brain is typically 0.2 to 0.3 degrees warmer than the fresh, cooler arterial blood that's entering it. So, those fluids leaving your skull? They are literally carrying away excess heat.
Let's see how this builds into a complete cooling cycle triggered by a simple yawn. Step 1, when you yawn, as the MRI scans proved, that warm venous blood and the cerebrospinal fluid forcefully flow out of the skull. Step 2, to compensate for that sudden outflow, there is an immediate rush of cooler arterial blood flowing back into the skull. And Step 3, that sudden influx of cooler blood brings the brain's overall temperature down, safely achieving that highly necessary homeostasis. So honestly, if you're ever in a stuffy room and find yourself just yawning uncontrollably, it's very possible your body is pulling an emergency lever to cool down your overheating brain.
Okay, one last thing. Your unique yawn fingerprint, the tongue signature.
Now, as if brain flushing and skull cooling weren't incredible enough, the researchers found a final, really fun twist hidden inside their MRI data. And this brilliantly illustrates just how highly individualized our biology really is. The researchers noticed that a yawn isn't just a simple mouth stretch, it actually involves an incredibly complex sequence of movements from the tongue. And surprisingly, that exact tongue motion is completely unique to each individual. It is extremely consistent every single time you yawn, but it looks entirely different from how I yawn. It basically acts exactly like a fingerprint. Hypothetically, you could actually identify someone just based on the unique mechanical signature of how they execute a yawn. Crazy, right?
Which brings us to the end of our deep dive today. I want to leave you with this thought. Is your brain taking out the trash right now? We've seen how this primordial, seemingly boring reflex is actually a complex, multi-purpose tool. One that might be flushing out neurological waste, acting as an internal radiator to prevent cell damage, and displaying a completely unique biological signature in the process. It's just an amazing reminder of how beautifully engineered our bodies are. So, the next time you feel that deep stretch coming on, don't stifle it. Let it happen. And I just have to ask, did this explainer finally make you succumb to a contagious yawn? Who will you infect with a yawn today? Thank you so much for learning with me. Stay intensely curious, and I'll catch you on the next explainer.